Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, May 3rd, 2018. My name is Kim Matina of the Sweet Talk. I am a Google Certified Trainer and a top contributor of the Google for Education Help Forum. Today, I would like to introduce you to my guest. I'm so happy he's on the show, John Sowash. He is from Michigan, and he's going to talk to you about how you can become a Google Certified Educator this summer. He's going to give you some information about that. He's very experienced with training educators and administrators on this task. So I'm going to hand it over to John. Thank you, John.
Kim, it's great to be here with you. I enjoy the opportunity to chat with people about one of my favorite topics, Google. So yeah, we crossed paths a couple years. It was a couple years ago at the Google admin event that I did. Um,
Yep, well, you were doing a Google Administrator boot camp for 2 days that I attended, and it was very great information, very helpful information.
good, good. I mean, the Google certification program is one that I've been working on for working with for a long time. I attended the Google Teacher Academy, which is no longer even a thing. They've changed. It's now the Innovator Academy. I attended that in 2009, and then helped put the Certified Trainer program together in 2010, 2011. And it really has changed my perspective as a teacher. I mean, it has connected me with so many amazing people like yourself. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this without that program. Um, which those people in the program are just unbelievable. The ideas, the insight that they share readily, free of charge, and very generous. It's great. And so one of the things that I really enjoy doing is helping others have that same experience. And um, I'm glad we're having this conversation now because I the certification process is not easy. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of work involved, and so in my opinion, the best time to do it is in the summer. And so, it's early May right now. School will be ending for those in the South in the next few weeks, and those of us in the North a little bit after that. But the best time to begin thinking and preparing and taking those certification exams is over the summer. And so, if it's cool with you, I wanted to just share 10 tips to become a Google certified educator and share some resources along the way.
Go for it. Share your screen.
Um,
Whatever you have to do.
yeah, so these are, I mean, super simple, and I know you're going to have some show notes. I have a lot of links and free resources that I can share as well, and so you definitely want to check out the show notes to get that. First tip seems kind of obvious, but super important. Make sure you pick the right test, the right exam. Um, there are actually 5 different certifications that you can earn. So there's the level 1, the level 2, certified trainer, certified innovator, then certified administrator as well. Each program has a different set of qualifications and requirements. And so I really recommend before you even start doing anything, review the requirements for each of them. The last thing I want you to do is say, "Oh, I want to become a Google certified innovator," and you take your level 1 exam only to realize that you need a level 2 exam, not a level 1. And so all that information is on Google's website. However, it's kind of scattered and buried everywhere. And so one of the resources that I'm going to recommend is I've got a blog post that is like a 1-page PDF of all 5 certification, explains exactly what's required for all of them. It's the easiest, best summary I could come up with to just get you started. Okay, so that's my first tip. We'll give you the link to that in the show notes. So the second tip, once you picked your exam and you know what you are trying to do, you need to figure out what skills you need to develop in order to be successful on that certification exam. And the resource that I have for this one is created by a great guy, Eric Kurtz from Ohio. He went through Google's training course and made a checklist of all of the different skills. And you can go to his website, it's Control Alt Achieve, and download that checklist. Just go through there, check off the ones you know. That way, you know where you need to focus your time and attention. So it's a great free resource.
Yeah, I've used that and referenced that source. That is an awesome checklist. It gives a lot of information, a lot of topics, a lot of detailed information about what you should study. Yeah, Eric's done a great job with that, and I would definitely, like you said, definitely recommend going there. Um, I'm gonna try to find it and then share my. Why don't you? Can you Google it and share
Yeah,
your screen so you could
yeah,
show
absolutely.
them? Because that I think is an important. It's important to also show and also show your PDF too,
Yeah.
so people can see what you're referencing. Also,
Yep. So I'll share.
Eric Kurtz is like a wealth of knowledge.
He's a good
He's
guy.
on. Yeah, he's a good guy. I met him. He is a really nice guy. He's so helpful, and he really does want people to be better than improve themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. He does a great job of explaining things in a way that
Slowly.
very easy to digest. So what I'm doing right now, these 10 tips, this is a blog post that I wrote. So I'm just kind of reviewing these. Now, every time I say I have a link for this, link for that, all those links are live on this post. We'll put this in the show notes. Um, this is Eric Kurtz, his blog post on the skills checklist. These are just Google Docs that you can access. Explains everything that you need. So yeah, pick your exam, get that skills checklist. There's a lot that's included on the different certification exams, and so don't spend your time reviewing for things that you're already comfortable with. Focus your attention on the things that you need a little extra practice with, and that's actually my third tip is put together a study plan. Eric's checklist is broken down by tool. So you have a list of things you need to know about Google Sheets and Google Drive and Gmail and Calendar and Sites and Blogger and groups and everything else. Um, Once you identify the areas that you're not as strong, then you can start to focus and say, okay, well, how am I going to learn about pivot tables or YouTube, editing videos on YouTube or things like that? Google has a ton of free resources that you can use. They have a comprehensive training center that you can go through. Um, it's very comprehensive. It'll take between 15 and 20 hours to make your way through the entire training center module, all the modules they provide. By
And that's
doing the
free, right, John?
yeah, yeah, it's free. It's very good. It tracks your progress. As you complete modules, it marks them as done, so you can find your place easily. Um, it's a lot of work though, so doing that checklist will help figure out where you need to practice. That way, you don't have to go through the whole thing. You can pick and choose the topics that you need to practice on. So yeah, the training center modules are very good. The other thing I would recommend is there's the G Suite training extension for Chrome is also very good. You install that, and then you can go into any tool. So if you go into Google Sheets, you go to pivot tables and you click the little extension, it'll teach you about pivot tables. If you go into Gmail, it'll teach you about Gmail or whatever tool you're in. So that's been around for a while. It's a company that Google bought probably a year ago, and it's totally free. This is the G Suite training extension here. I'll pull it up so you can see it. Looks like that, and yeah, it'll teach you about all the different Google products. So yeah, a couple of free resources to get you started. And then, The people who are most successful on the certification exams are the ones who use the Google products full time. I mean, there's really no substitute for practice. You have to use it. So I know that there are, districts who, um, use Google and Microsoft, and you have Word and whatnot. I'm very honest. If you want to be a Google certified educator, you need to be using the Google products full time. Um, so delete Microsoft Word from your desktop. Um,
Totally agree with that statement.
I'm not against those tools; they're fine. But if you want to be a certified educator, then you really need to be using.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you're using the tools, you're going to be more successful on the exams because it's like you're doing it with your eyes closed every single day. It's very comfortable, it's natural, So I think that's 100% accurate. I couldn't agree with you more.
And a lot of people are kind of uncomfortable with that. I mean, I remember when I made the decision to say, okay, I'm going to use Google Drive. I'm not using Microsoft Office anymore. But then when the pressure comes and you're like, oh, I got to quickly make this whatever, and you're like, oh, I could just do this faster than the other thing. Well, that's exactly when you need to be practicing your skills in the Google ecosystem. Takes time. I know it's not uncomfortable, but that's what growth is. It
Yeah, I
requires a
agree.
little bit of discomfort.
I agree. When people don't like change, so that's a mindset that needs to uh, be addressed because if you're going to really be a Google education school, you
Yeah,
you have to use the whole package, and you have to cut people off sometime or another.
right.
And that's my opinion. Like at my school, because we're still half and half. The only things that I use in Microsoft Word are my state um, my state template for my
Yeah,
SGO. That's it.
there's a lot of people who tell me that. Yeah.
And that's the only thing I use in Microsoft Word.
Mhm.
I can't convert it over into Google Docs because the format it would change everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
And again, I'm not anti Microsoft. They're great tools, great products. If you're going to be a Microsoft innovative educator, then you should use the Microsoft products. But
And I agree with you. You're
I'm
100% right.
I'm the Google guy, so
Yep,
you can anticipate what you'll get from me. Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Now I've worked with about getting close to 2,000 teachers and help them earn their Google certifications. So a lot of them have gone through my certification program. I have something called the Google Certification Academy. They've gone through that. Now I'm going to tell you very frankly, of the 2,000 people who have come to the program, only a small fraction have actually gone on to finish their certification. And there's a couple common characteristics that I've observed of the people who actually do it. One of them is my fifth tip: find a friend to practice and work with. Um, it is very difficult to be successful on these certification exams and tests if you're working in isolation by yourself. You need to work in community. So the most successful people usually form a group of 2 or 3 people at a school, and they kind of work on it and bounce ideas off each other and hold each other accountable to it. It's something that not a lot of people necessarily want to do, but that's one of the characteristics of the people who tend to be successful in doing it. Um, the My sixth tip is also one of those important characteristics. If you ask anybody who has taken and passed their certification exams, very few, if any of them, will tell you that they felt ready. You will never feel ready. You can always study a little bit more, practice a little bit longer, read another blog post, watch another video, and if you do that, you will never get it done. So you have to pick a date and say, on this date, ready or not, I'm going to take that level 1 or that level 2 exam, or I'm going to submit my certified trainer application. If you wait till you feel ready, it'll never happen. So I'm curious. You took yours. You're a certified trainer, so you've done level 1 and level 2. what did do you remember when you took that level one exam? How it went and what you felt like?
Honestly, I just took it. I did look over Eric's checklist um, to see what I needed to refresh on or whatnot. But I just took it. I passed it. I thought it was because I use it all the time. And like you said, if you're using it all the time and you're familiar with things, you're gonna really feel comfortable with the exam. Um, the level two exam I thought was a little bit more challenging. It took me a little bit, a couple extra minutes to finish the exam. Um, but there were some things on there that I didn't know, and that's why we take these exams and study, because they, you
Oh yeah.
grow with it.
Yep.
But
That's right.
I did find that level two was a little bit more challenging. I think it would suit more for a more of a teacher that feels more comfortable with technology and doesn't is not intimidated with it and is comfortable with it, is using it proficiently,
Hmm.
not afraid to try new things. That was what I got out of it. So yeah, I mean, I kind of, the first one I took, no problem. The second one, it took me a little bit extra time to get through it. I didn't fail it. I passed it, but I thought it was a little bit more challenging,
Yeah,
some of the things.
for
And it
sure.
should be. I mean, it should be. It's harder. It's a next level. So, the difficulty level should be there.
Hmm.
It should be harder.
Yeah. I think people overthink these sometimes. I mean, the level one exam is only $10.
Hmm.
So look, I mean, even if you take it and you don't pass it, take it again. It's only $10.
Yep.
I mean, it would be embarrassing for either of us to tell how much we spent on our master's degrees. I mean, I mean, one credit hour is ridiculous. So, I mean, if you take it and you don't feel ready and you don't pass, it's okay. You just do it again. I think you have to wait a week or a couple, 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 14 days or
Yeah, but just do it again. I mean, you'll be
yeah,
fine.
it's
Uh,
not a big deal.
I don't know
And
if I've
and at
ever heard
least
anybody not passing the second time.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that they give you feedback on what you need to improve on, right?
It's a little bit. It's not terribly detailed. Um,
But at least it's not like pass fail. Okay, now what do I do? I don't know what to study, what I need to improve on. They do give you something.
yeah, it's pretty broad. I've never, no one's been terribly impressed with the feedback.
Okay.
um, it's yeah, you really need to approach it more like kind of like an SAT, ACT style test. I mean, they're going to give you your score. They might say, "Hey, you're a little weak in Google Drive," but I mean, Google Drive is huge. I mean, is it Sheets? Is it Forms? Is it
Yeah.
so? That is a little frustrating, but I mean, Google has thousands and thousands of people who take this test. They can't give personal feedback to every single person, fortunately. So
This is true. This is true. I just remember reading somewhere, I don't know where I was, if I was on the forum or somewhere else, blog post, but I remember that they did
a
give you
little bit,
something
a little
something
bit, yeah.
back.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's better than nothing, John.
yep, for sure. Um, So I've given you 6 tips so far. Number 6 was don't wait till you feel ready, and numbers 7 and 8 are kind of related. Just gets a little more into the details of registering. So in case you haven't figured this out yet, the level one and level two certification programs require you to pass an exam. And if you head over to my blog post, I've got details on what's included on those exams to help you out. But registering for the exam, there's a couple of key things that you need to know, and those are tips 7 and 8 here. So tip number 7 is make sure you register in advance. Um, I don't exactly know the process behind the scenes how this works, but when you register, you pay for your exam. It's $10, $25 for level two. Um, it can take up to 24 hours for you to receive the email that details how to get into the exam and to take it. Now, it's not normally 24 hours, but I have heard in cases that it can take several hours to, to show up. And so I just don't want you to get into a situation where you like you block out your time, you cancel your appointments, you're in there, you're ready to go, you register, and then you're sitting there and waiting for an hour, 2 hours for your stuff to show up.
That's a good point.
So I encourage you, register a day, a couple days in advance. Wait till you get that email so you know you're ready to go when you're prepared. So that's tip 7. Now, tip 8 takes it to the next step, because once you receive that email from Google with the exam instructions, you have to take it within 7 days. So you got 2 things to think about. Number 1, you want to register in advance, but 2, you don't want to register too far in advance that your exam expires before you actually have time to take it. So it's a little tricky, but just something to be aware of before you get into it. I have had a couple of people who didn't read about the expiring of the exam. You have 7 days, and they lost it, which is a bummer. So just 2 quick things to keep in mind. Final 2 tips, and then chat for a little bit. Number 9, there's a lot of info out there about what's on the exam, what you need to prepare for, things like that. But one thing that kind of struck me is there wasn't a lot of info about what it's like to take the exam. Like, there's a time limit, but is there a timer? Like, can I see how much time that I have? What if I get to a question and I don't know the answer? Can I come back to it later? Can I change my answer later on if I want to? So just, questions like that. So what I did is I actually wrote a blog post with a detailed overview of what the exam interface looks like. So the buttons, the timer, the mark for review, how do you submit, go back, and all of that. To my knowledge, I'm the only person to do this, but I just want you, when you take the exam, I want you to be successful. So I don't want you to have to be surprised or worried about what happens if I click this button or things like that. So we'll link to this post so you can get to it, but this will kind of give you an introduction to what the level 1, level 2, even the certified administrator exam is very similar to this. So that's tip number 9. And then the final tip is just to kind of think through the testing strategy. Be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. There's 2 different strategies that I've heard people mention. Number 1 is to do a 2-device setup. So you have like maybe 2 Chromebooks, one that you actually log into the testing interface and are answering the questions, but then a second computer that you use to do like research and verify your answers. It's an open book test, so you can look up answers if you want. You just have to be aware that there's a time limit, so it's not like you have unlimited time to explore everything. So some people do that. Some people do 2 monitors. So if you have an external monitor, you can set that up and have the test in one window and look things up in another window. That seems to be 2 very common approaches to just maximize your efficiency and make sure that you can complete the exam in the allotted time. That's probably the number 1 reason that people do not pass is they run out of time. You could spend days researching and confirming the answers to every question, but you don't have days. You only have 180 minutes, and so you have to use it strategically. So I'm curious, Kim, did you do, when you took your exams, did you use 2 devices, 2 monitors, or are you
I
one
I
screened
used
out?
two
Okay.
devices. Yeah, I used my desktop computer, and then I had my Chromebook next to me. And because I was concerned with going into cognito mode and then losing connection, and
Yep.
for me, it was just easier to do it with 2 devices.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever you're most comfortable with. you know, pick the device that you're comfortable using. If you don't use a Chromebook on a daily basis,
Mhm.
don't use a Chromebook for
E
your exam. Um,
exactly, and you have to have a webcam. I know you had said that you
mhm.
have, that posted in there, but you have to have a webcam. So if you don't have a monitor with a webcam, you're gonna have to get an external one.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. The webcam kind of creeps people out. You know, what Google does is they take a picture of you right at the beginning of the exam, and then the webcam stays on throughout, and they randomly will take pictures, and using facial recognition, they just verify that the same person who took the picture at the beginning is the same person who sat there in front of the computer the whole time. So it's not like someone's watching you from the other end. It's all
They're just making sure it's you taking the exam.
yep.
And then I know, like I tell people, um, when you're planning to take the exam, you need to stay put. You can't get up, you can't move like away from the computer, you cannot move away from the webcam. Um, right? Am I correct with that? Because if
It's a
you
good idea. I don't. I've never heard of anybody like having their score voided because they left. I mean, if you have to go to the bathroom, then I mean, do what you have to do. But yes, in generally, you need to be prepared to sit there for the full 180 minutes as best you can. I mean, look, you can't pause it. So,
yeah.
um, I mean, you just don't have time to waste. You're going to need every minute.
And honestly, John, did it take you the full 3 hours to do both exams?
Um, so I'm probably not a very good person to ask. So I take these exams several times a year. Um, I mean, because I run a program that helps people prepare, it's my responsibility to be intimately familiar with how they're run and the types of questions that are asked. So I whip through it pretty quick, but most people aren't taking it, more than once a year. On average, everybody I speak to is, using all the time. Even if extra time is available, they're using it to review questions they weren't 100% sure
They
on.
skipped. Yeah, I agree. I mean, even me, I used up majority of the time.
Yep.
Majority of the time. So, yeah, it's not just because you're, in my opinion, even though I'm a trainer,
Hmm.
I still took up most of the time. I would say almost to 3 hours I took up for both exams.
Yep.
So, don't be intimidated or anything like that. If you really want to take the exam, take the exam. Don't let the time intimidate you because, people, pace themselves differently. So just do the best you can and take it and be prepared
Yeah. And
and
again,
be confident.
yep. I mean, you'll never feel 100% ready. You're going to give it your best. If you've practiced, if you use the tools on a daily basis, then that's the best preparation that you can have.
Yeah, and then another thing I'd like to add too is if you're putting out the money for the exam and your school is Google for Education School District, they may even reimburse you for the expense too. So that's something that you can look into with your school administrators and see if they would reimburse you.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, again, at $10, I mean, this is the best deal around. I am starting to see more teacher job postings reference a desire to hire a Google certified educator, or that's a certification that is desired. So this is going to look, we're all educators. We all have bachelor's degree, we all have teaching certificates, most of us have master's degrees, and it doesn't matter because everybody has one. So being able to say, hey, I'm a level 1, level 2 certified educator, if it's a Google district that you're getting hired into, is a tremendous value for them.
Exactly. Because at that point, you're going to be an asset for them.
For sure. For sure.
Definitely.
Now, I know that I've whipped through a ton of tips and resources during this last 15, 20 minutes or so. And so what I'd like to make available to your viewers is my absolute best, most comprehensive resource to Google certifications. It's actually hot off the press. I just finished about a week ago. This is my ultimate guide to Google certifications. This is over 30 pages long, and it reviews all 5 certifications. So level 1 educator, level 2 educator, certified trainer, innovator, and certified administrator. So we'll put the link in the show notes to where you can grab a copy of this, 100% free, and hopefully it'll be helpful as you pursue your certification.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I will definitely look into that too. I was looking and I was thinking about trying to apply for the innovator program. So this is a good place for me to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good time if anybody is thinking about that. The U.S. Innovator program is coming up. I think it's in August, but the application is pretty soon. I want to say end of May, perhaps. So if you're interested, yeah, you want to jump on that quickly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for
You're
inviting me
good?
to
You're done?
share with your
That was a lot. That
audience.
was great.
I packed it into the last 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
That was awesome. No, I think a lot of the viewers are going to find that very helpful. And I appreciate your sharing your knowledge and your information. And hopefully, you know, if someone wants to reach out to you, all of John's information will be on my website. I will show you. So let me share my screen. So, all right. So if you go to my website, you can Google the Sweet Talk and my website will come up, and you can go to episodes, and in the episodes area here I will have the YouTube link for the show and the show notes, which is a Google Doc. I'm going to add that all in here so you can reference John's information and materials right in here. If you would like to be a guest on my show, you can certainly go to the guest tab and fill out my form, and I will get back to you as soon as I can and see what we can come up with. Um, and one more thing is, if you would like to email me, you can email sweettalkshow@gmail.com. Here's my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and here is the bit.ly URL for my website. So with that said, I am going to go back to Google Hangouts. Here I am. And I want to thank you again, John, for being on the show. It was very helpful. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And I will see everyone else next time. Thanks for stopping in.